So the launch of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was fantastic if you were a Zombies fan. We were blessed with two really good maps, that being Terminus and Liberty Falls. There was cool cinematic cutscenes throughout with an intriguing narrative, and the core round-based gameplay was really exciting. However, as the game has continued through its life cycle, it's fair to say that the hype surrounding the mode has definitely dropped off, with the most recent map, The Tomb, being a real turning point within the fanbase. Now personally, I do think that Treyarch and on a larger scale Activision have made a lot of mistakes with Black Ops 6 so far. However, I do want to prefix this video by saying that if you do genuinely enjoy Black Ops 6, honestly, I commend you for it. I do think it's genuinely quite a good Zombies experience. We've definitely had worse. So if you are a fan of the game, don't take these criticisms as a slander towards you personally, because all it is aspects of Black Ops 6 which I don't like, which I ultimately wish would be improved so I can enjoy the game again myself. Anyway, with that being said, I think that the biggest issue with Black Ops 6 Zombies, something which is way deeper than the quality of maps and things like that, is the actual Black Ops 6 formula for the gameplay itself. Now this formula is something that you've seen throughout a lot of the what I'd call modern Zombies games, so from Black Ops 4 up until Black Ops 6 now, but when you spawn into a match of Zombies, you have a loadout system prior to the fact. So you have the ability to set beforehand what your equipment's going to be, what your tactical item's going to be, what your primary weapon is going to be, as well as a lot of modifications and attachments to it to obviously improve it. You also have now with Black Ops 6 you can change the melee weapon you take in. You also have field upgrades. You have gobblegums are slightly different, but you still have a lot of core fundamental assets that you are taking into a game of Zombies, which back in the classic era was completely random. Now for me this causes two major problems to occur, the first of which being that, as with all Zombies games, there is a meta to it, there is a best gun you can use. So the second that was worked out, which in this game's case has sort of flip-flopped, but it's generally the ASG-89 for most scenarios, once you have that fully leveled up, there is absolutely zero point in using any other weapon. Because why would you use something any worse? The whole point of the Zombies mode itself is to try and survive as well as you can, and you're not going to take in a weaker weapon than one that you can have when you spawn in. I think the second issue this creates is that it completely negates the use of the mystery box, unless if you're going for a wonder weapon. Back in the classic era, spinning the box was a part of life. You were trying to get that best weapon and you'd constantly cycle through weapons and more often than not use a lot of them because, you know, you've got to select it, it's there, you might as well use it and try it out and see if you like it. There was such a variety created in doing this, which isn't there in Black Ops 6 unless if you actively look for it. Whereas in the classic era, because you spawned in with a pistol, which is arguably one of the worst weapons you can have, the mystery box actually had a purpose, whereas now it's just a bit redundant. I think another core part of Black Ops 6's gameplay, which is a bit of an issue for Zombies, is the actual weapon leveling up system. Now, not only does it cost like 50,000 points to fully pack-a-punch a weapon, but if you want to actually make that weapon any good, you need to level up its weapon rarity as well. Now this is clearly something that's fallen out of Fortnite and Warzone and all that shit, but either way, you still have to actually use that in order to make the weapon viable, and that takes a long time. So when you combine that with also having to get 50,000 points, you're looking at like round 30 plus before you have a fully pack-a-punch salvaged up weapon, which realistically means in itself that you're only going to be using that weapon for the rest of the game because you're not going to have time to upgrade anything else with all of the resources it takes. It's just another fact that really limits the variety in a Zombies match and can make every single game that you play feel very similar because you're just leveling up likely the same gun at each point all the time, and it's boring. I honestly think that there's only two main reasons why players would use a different weapon. It's either if it's newly released, so things like the PPSH or the FNFAL, which have just been released into Black Ops 6, or back when the game actually came out, people were doing a camo grind, so they were having to use every single weapon to get the headshots, get the elite kills. But it wasn't through choice or through randomness of box hits, it was through people just needing to grind out the camos. Which I think is another big reason actually why the game has kind of died off a bit, because there were so many people grinding out that Nebula camo that once it was done, either players were A, really bored of playing zombies, which is understandable, or B, had sort of completed the task that they wanted, so they didn't really have a reason to play anymore. Now personally, I think Treyarch were banking on these players to be around a lot longer and have the mode still look good in terms of the numbers of players it had. However, these players were definitely cut short on their zombies lifespan by the release of directed mode, because that shit made grinding the cameras out so easy, it's ridiculous. And I know the whole point of directed mode was to actually increase the volume of zombies players actually taking part in Easter eggs and things like that. However, it seemed like 90% of people went into directed mode on Liberty Falls, grinded out their camos, and fucked off and didn't play it again. And frankly, I don't really blame them if that was all they were interested in. Treyarch made it so easy to grind that out. And ultimately, once they've got the reward that they wanted, they're not going to stick around. It makes sense. Moving away from the core elements of Black Ops 6 for a minute, we do have to address the elephant in the room, which is the quality of the DLC maps we've received. Now, Citadel des Morts, for me, when it released, was easily like a top 10 map. I loved it. I loved the sword crafting, I loved the boss fight, I loved the Easter egg, thought it was all fantastic. The layout of the map was really cool, very sort of Horizon-esque, but not really. It was just good. Unfortunately, the replayability value was not there for me, and I think it was also lost on a lot of other players. Now, a big part of that was down to the bugs that were ensuing. I can't tell you the amount of times that I went to do that boss fight and it would bug out and not let me enter the mode beforehand. It was crazy, and that, for people that can't play zombies for like 5 hours a day, that will kill your hype around playing the mode, because once you've dumped that much time into trying to complete an objective just to have it say, it's broken, you can't play it now, that's gonna deter people from wanting to play the mode full stop. However, despite this really irritating bug, this map was still leaps and bounds ahead of what we got in DLC 2 with the Tomb. Now, this is just without doubt a filler map, right? Like, there is no question about it. The Easter egg itself is just nothing, there's nothing to it. You literally get the Wonder Weapon, upgrade the Wonder Weapon, do 4 boss fights, then do a bigger boss fight against a fucking inanimate object, and that's it. The cutscene at the end of it is nothing. It got significantly worse than the great ones that we got in the likes of Terminus and even Liberty Falls. It's just literally, there's no voice acting in it, there's nothing. It's just you pick up the object and you leave. It's probably AI generated at this stage, let's be honest. There also wasn't even an intro cutscene, and I think a big part of the poor quality of these cutscenes was probably down to the whole voice actor strike and the AI controversy that was going on with Activision at the time a couple of months ago. That's a whole other thing, but generally speaking, it really lowered the quality of that Tomb map. It felt like there was a real lack of originality creeping in with the Tomb, because there were so many reused assets. Obviously, to start off, you had the Ice Staff, which comes from Origins, which is obviously a fan favourite map. Now, it's an incredible Wonder Weapon. It's not quite as good in Black Ops 6, but once you upgrade it, it is still pretty good. But either way, why is it actually in the map? What relevance does it have to the Tomb? I know we're going to be chasing Richtofen and whatever, so maybe this was a staff he used when he was the Primus version. That's whole story bullshit going on. You don't need that in the map. Why can't you have something different or something new? If you're linking it so heavily to the Chaos storyline, which they are doing with Black Ops 6, why not bring in a Chaos Wonder Weapon like the Scorpion gun that you had on 9, or Albert's revolver from Dead of the Night, whichever one, just something different. The same can be said with the release of fan favourite guns. Obviously the PPSH came back, and again I love it, and I would love to actually have it in the map and not be part of the Battle Pass, but either way, why is it actually in here? There's no need for it. You've also got the reuse of certain enemies, like you've got the amalgams coming back for some reason, you've got vermin, you've got parasites, all things that are normally recycled, but when it comes to the bigger sort of specialist zombies, like the amalgams for example, and the mimics, which were apparently new because they were electric, but they're not because they're reused from Black Ops Cold War, why are they in the map? The amalgam itself was built specifically off the back of Terminus, kind of like how the Thrasher was built specifically off Zetsubo no Shima. So why are they present in this map too? And the same with Citadel des Morts, while we're on the topic. There's no reason for them to be in this map. Why can't we have a new specialist zombie each map? Kind of like what we had back in Black Ops 3. I know I've gone on a lot about the reuse of assets within Black Ops 6 Zombies, but you've got the same examples with the perks that they've brought back. So far in Black Ops 6 we've had Vulture Aid and Death Perception, 2 perks that were in previous games being Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 4 and Cold War, I believe. Either way, despite having slight differences with augments, there's still nothing new here that we're seeing. The only perk that we have seen that's new to Black Ops 6 is Melee Macchiato, which is somewhat good, but it's incredibly situational. The only real time it benefits you is when you're in Citadel Day Morts. It seems like the days of introducing like revolutionary perks into the game, like Widow's Wine for example, just aren't the case anymore. I mean, even if they were to bring back Double Tap, although it is again another asset reuse, you'd be able to deviate the way that players play zombies massively, as the perk holds such an influence on how successful your game is, so it would feel like it's an actual addition and not just a bit of a side perk like the other ones do. And sticking with the tomb for a minute, one thing that we need to talk about is how terrible the boss fight is. The boss fights have declined in quality so much with the tomb. You've gone from fighting like a godlike stone being in a massive tentacle octopus squid thing to literally fighting a bit of furniture. It's an inanimate object, and not only is it a really dull, boring fight, but it doesn't actually make sense within the story at all. The whole point of the story is you're trying to collect this artifact that you're fighting. So why are you fighting it? It doesn't make sense to me. At least with the other ones, they were big boss fights and you were fighting like big creatures. There was kind of something behind it. This is just odd. Now I think there is a lot of reasons behind this drop off in quality with the tomb. One of them, which I think is pretty obvious and out there, is the fact that these DLCs are releasing incredibly fast. I mean, we got the tomb itself, the second DLC, sort of towards the end of January, start of February, and when you compare that to other games, we've barely had the first DLC at that point. So they're really pumping out maps quickly, and obviously when you do something quicker, there's less time to actually develop it and put resource into it, so it's going to be a worse experience because of that. You can't expect maps to be as detailed as, like, say, Shadows of Evil or any launch map, for example, when they've just not got the same level of development time. Now, in theory, you'd think that Treyarch wouldn't want to rush out any of the map packs that they're creating, because you've still got a lot of the seasons left to go and a longer life cycle with Black Ops 6, so why do you want to rush out the maps when there's still more of the game to come with it? Well, I think that there's a big reason for that, and it's the reason that the whole game exists in itself, and it's to make money. I genuinely think that a massive part of releasing the Tomb DLC 2 in line with Season 2 of the Battle Pass was to try to promote the Battle Pass sales at that time. Because if Zombies players got new content to play right on the release of the Battle Pass, they're more likely to buy the Battle Pass because they're going to be playing the game, so it's going to generate more revenue for Activision and Treyarch. And this focus around generating revenues and profits, which is obviously the core point of having a business to begin with, is probably why we've seen a bit of a drop-off in the Zombies content that we've got so far. As we've seen, very few people actually complete the mainline Easter egg quests within the Zombies maps. I know they've created directive mode to try and combat that, but it's still a crazy small percentage of the total number of Zombies players. And realistically speaking, developing an entire Zombies map with all of the unique features that we love and a very long mainline quest is fucking expensive to do. So they're not going to dedicate the same level of resources into creating these high quality maps because it's not as profitable for them. On the other hand, what is very profitable for them at the minute are the LTM modes that they keep creating with the various collaboration skins. Now I'll be honest, as content itself, I absolutely hate it. Like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle skins that you've got at the minute and the whole Squid Games game modes and limited time modes, they're all shit, they're all terrible to me, they're just like brain rot level content. Unfortunately though, those LTMs are going to amass millions and the actual game itself will be left in a more simplistic, cheaper to produce state because of this. Now I know these limited time events are also present within the Zombies mode itself, but let's be honest, everybody has hated each one that we've got so far. And ultimately the success of them is just going to take away from the actual mainline Zombies experience, which we want improved upon given the most recent DLC. I think another aspect of all this that we need to incorporate is the microtransactions available within Black Ops 6. Obviously there's two sort of main ways that Treyarch and Activision look to pry money out of their Zombies fanbase, right? You've got the gobblegums and you've got the bundles. Now, things like the weapon skins bundles, I do think they're cool. Again, they're crazy expensive and I would never buy one, but I can understand why fans do because they do look really cool. However, it does feel like to me Treyarch are just trying to maximise their profits out of their already existing fan base as much as they can. And again, I guess that makes sense because, you know, it's a business. That's kind of what they're, you know, employed to do. But as opposed to trying to grow and develop the mode, which they've kind of shown that they can't really do very easily at the minute. They're trying to make as much money out of the existing fan base as possible. And I think that leads into the Gobblegums as well, where you've got the sale of those being crazy expensive. Obviously they're only a one-time use thing, so they're literally only used once a game. And when you get maps like the Tomb or Citadel des Morts, which have either been buggy or have been given an incredibly hard boss fight, like with the Tomb, so you're going to burn through a lot of them and then have to reuse them should you fail at the boss fight, for example, you're essentially going to be spending more money than you would have wanted to initially. Now, one of my biggest criticisms of my Tomb review was the fact that the boss fight was just a lot of artificial difficulty that didn't need to be there. Part of me thinks, and it's a little bit of an evil thought, is that maybe Treyarch did this to boost those Gobblegum sales. Again, that's all theory, there's no sort of actual credibility behind that, but it does seem convenient that the map is smaller, clearly less developed, and very difficult to try and maximise those profits. But obviously, that's just a theory. So ultimately then, what is the main thing that can be done to fix Black Ops 6 Zombies? What can rectify all of these issues and make it great again as such? Honestly, from the gameplay perspective of it being a little bit boring at this stage, unfortunately you can't really do much about it unless if you're going to make a major overhaul to how Black Ops 6 works systematically, which I just don't believe they're going to do. Honestly, it's a very simple answer for Treyarch. You just need to spend more time developing the maps and make them feel as if they're a proper map. None of this filler bullshit like what we got with the Tomb. People clearly want quite a long narrative style of things like what we got in Terminus, with a really satisfying Easter egg, and ultimately just a creative map, new ideas, not the reuse of the same assets constantly. I will say I do think that Black Ops 6 still has the chance to turn it round, and it could still be one of the better games that we've had in the Zombies franchise. However, at this point I'm a little bit concerned with how much DLC we're expected to have come out still, with a rumoured DLC 5, and not to mention Black Ops 7 is coming later this year, so there's going to be a lot of Zombies content flying out fairly quickly, and I worry it's going to be to the same sort of standard as the Tomb, unfortunately. But more importantly than that, what do you guys think? Have you guys got any concerns currently with Black Ops 6 Zombies? Do you guys think the game is still great and there's no issues at all? Or do you agree with me and think that there are some glaring issues that need to be rectified soon? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you are new here and you haven't already, please do subscribe, as it means the absolute world and really helps out the channel. Anyway, thanks ever so much for watching. Hope to see you in another video sometime soon.